Ah, thank you very much. So, yeah, I just watched all my viewers drop off as the intro started. That's wonderful. That is. That's wonderful. Love you guys, man. So, I've been the last few days, man. The last week, I've been wanting to make videos and coming on, like getting all set up to go live, and then just saying, "Nah, do you know what? Nah, fuck it," and not going live. For I don't know what it is that has just stopped me every time from doing it. Mostly I've just been sat there thinking, what's the point? What is the point? Like, obviously I have very little credibility, certainly amongst my family and stuff. So nobody's really listening. Everybody just get on, and they're either waking up or they're not. But I saw something today. That just absolutely, oh my God. In a way, I'm not surprised. In a way, I'm not surprised that they've done this. I mean, after all, it is their kind of MO. Sorry, just going into my chat room. Right, yeah, it's their MO. I mean, this is how they operate. But if you go onto channels like Richard Grannon, who talks about narcissism and sociopaths and psychopaths, covert and overt narcissists, all that, he's gone through. He goes through that quite well, actually. I really enjoy Richard Grannon's work. I think he's brilliant. Because he calls people out. He calls everyone out. He even calls out the mental health industry for addressing things completely wrong. But he's talked about projection. Anybody that looks into psychological issues and stuff, we talk about projection, about how particularly psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists project themselves onto everybody else. And particularly the criminal element, they do it to distract you. It would be quite scary if people were to sit there and tally up how many horrific accusations were made by people against other people when it ended up that it was the person who made the accusation that was actually guilty of the crime. The one who smelt it, dealt it, right? That's what we all learned at school. The one who smelt it dealt it. The one that sat there and went, "Oh, did you fart?" That's the one that farted. We all learned it at school, for fuck's sake. Yeah, we were indoctrinated in school, but we did actually learn things. Social interaction. That's where we got our social skills and stuff. With some school, all right, we learned it completely. We were completely indoctrinated with the information, the history, and the English, and Ben Porter, how you doing? How you doing, man? No comment. How you doing, buddy? Sorry, mate. If you can hear the fan in the background, I'm sorry, I can't turn it off because I'll die. And if you were wondering about the camera, I just don't feel like being on camera. There you go. Just don't really. I look like absolute shit. I look really bad. In the last 2 weeks, I've eaten once in 2 weeks. So I look like fucking shit. So, as a kid, you expect the adults. The adults are in charge, aren't they? They're all in charge, and they're right. And adults aren't evil. People aren't evil. This is just the way things are. There are rules. There are rules of engagement in all kinds of scenarios, in war and in social interactions and in business. There are rules of engagement. There's a way we do things. And it's all based on courtesy and respect. Unless, of course, the other person does something, to incur disrespect, or if somebody shows a lack of courtesy, people note it, don't they? We note it when people display a lack of courtesy. And this is all stuff that we learn when we're growing up. Now, everybody's got their own opinions about what happened last year in November. Everybody's got their own opinions about it. When it happened, a lot of people that were really pleased that it happened. Just purely because, Orange Man bad. No other reason. There were an awful lot of people that just wanted him out. And I was actually, when he was first coming in, when he was talking about running and he was first coming in, I hated the man. I mean, it was visceral. But I looked at how the mainstream media were attacking, and everybody was attacking, and it started to seem quite obvious to me that it was a bit strange, man. It was a bit strange. It was kind of over the top, completely over the top, and that made me think, hang on a second, maybe I'm wrong about the guy. So I reevaluated him. I spent a couple of months reevaluating him. And I changed my mind, and I have my own opinion about what happened last year. But the events that have transpired since, that's what's important. You will know them by their fruits. That's what we all learn. And the fruits of this guy are rotten and malformed. They're not. They're putrid. It's disgusting what's happening right now, and it's unbelievable. More than anything else, it's absolutely unbelievable what's going on in the US of A right now. So, Elise D, hey, is it Elise or Eliza? All the world's a stage, yes it is. But the thing is, right, with what's just happened in Afghanistan, I'm not going to say the words, but I'm going to try my best to avoid the artificial intelligence that's scanning all videos, and I'm already on 2 strikes on my main channel. That's why I'm here on my backup channel. I was very lucky with those 2 strikes because I got that just as I was already on 2 strikes, and then the first strike that I got went away, as it does after a number of months. It went away just as they gave me another strike. So I was literally within days of actually my channel actually being deleted. I was really quite lucky. Elise, right? Okay. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting, my mind is all over the place. I can't think properly. It's probably largely because I'm, malnutrition and stuff, but it's also just what's going on. So this thing happened just recently, and everybody's a bit shocked. I'm actually not shocked. I am and I'm not. Like I'm not surprised. I'm shocked, but I'm not really surprised that he's done it at all. Everybody thinks that it's incompetence and it's he's lost the plot and whatever. No, he knows exactly what he's doing. Has no spine. Is not a man. Is 100% owned and controlled, and he's just doing what he's told. They told him, no, the dates don't change. The dates don't change. This is when you get them. Everybody's got to be out by then, right? Remember that this is we're in a war right now. This is a war right now. And you could say, oh, there's not bombs and stuff. Yeah, there are bombs going off. They're not going off here. They're not going off in America yet. There's not, it's not that sort of it's not the Second World War. This is WW3. This is completely different. It's an information, spiritual, psychological war. Completely 100% a full assault on our well-being, on our spirit, on our minds, on our egos, on everything. We are being they're trying to basically eviscerate us, making real alpha male men, masculine, real men, not these pretend plastic pansies that prance around on your TV box, pumping themselves full of steroids with all the problems that come with that. Real men who are left feeling completely powerless. And there's nothing worse for a real man than to feel powerless, emasculated. So anyway, let me get back to the point. I'm 44 in a few weeks, in a matter of weeks. I'm 44 years old. And I remember my dad when he was 44, because I was 17. When my dad was 44 years old, I was a 17-year-old lad who thought he knew everything. They actually kicked me out of home. I was on the street when I was 17. Yo, David, how you doing, man? Yeah, that's when my parents cut the umbilical cord. You know, when they realised they had no control over me, I was absolutely not going to do what they wanted me to do. They had the mold ready for me. I absolutely did not want to fit in it. So they said, right, fine, get out. So I did. And I I ended up sleeping on the floor of the recording studio that I was working in. And I was out of home. I was gone for, I can't remember how long exactly. But the company ended up going bust, and I ended up going back to my parents with my tail between my legs and getting a real job at 19. I got a job as a salesman, and that was my first real job as a salesman. I did temporary work. I worked in the buyer department of Bayer. I worked in credit control in Vodafone. I did all these office jobs. But I ended up doing my first proper full-time permanent job was doing sales. And even then, even though I thought I was a man, I knew I wasn't, because there were men older than me in their 40s. And it was just a given that these men, they were obviously wiser. They'd obviously been doing things longer. They were more experienced. And therefore you had to respect them and trust that what they were doing. And it's all, you know, it was all based on these things that we learn at school from our parents and from interacting with our friends and stuff about conduct of behavior, how to conduct yourself. And we all come into contact with different types of people. We all come into contact with sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists. And we come into contact with compassionate, honest, good people with good energy. And most of us can tell the difference between the two. Most of us can actually tell the difference between the two, because most of us are actually empaths. We have a emphatic ability to, you know, feel. So every single time I see this happen on mainstream television, and I don't watch mainstream news when it's scheduled. I watch it through YouTube via the channels that I follow on YouTube. That's how I keep up with what the mainstream's doing. I can't deal with it. If I had mainstream TV pumping into this television here, I'd go insane. I'd go crazy. I'd go absolutely insane. I feel it numbing my brain as the bloody frequencies coming out of the TV. It's different when it comes via another channel. Every time I see this happening, I think, wow, I mean, if I can see this, who else can see this? And I know that all of you listening, you can all see this, you all see it. I just don't, how far has it got to go? How much further has it got to go for people like my parents? I want to know what my dad has got to say about this. I mean, I don't speak to the man. I haven't spoken to him in 8 years because he's got no interest. And so neither have I. He's never had any real interest because, you know, otherwise we would have bonded and we'd have this father-son thing, but we don't have that. Me and my dad don't have that. I didn't even fucking know who he was for the first 3 years. Not because he was because he was an extremely hard-working man. I mean, the guy was abroad working all the time. So I'd only see him at the weekends. Didn't really know who he was for the first 3 years. But it was all, you know, to build our future and everything. It was all for the benefit of the family. But at the cost of my relationship with him. The cost of my relationship with my father, he busted his ass to eventually fail in what he was doing because I still don't know the full reasons as to why. But it's all linked to the Freemasons. It's all linked to them. The fact that he was a Freemason and now he's not. He was successful in business and now he's not. But I want to know what my old man would have to say about Joe Biden. I mean, I really thought that my old man would have something to say about what's been going on since last January. But it turns out that my old man seems to think that the BBC is the gospel. And when he said that, when he said to me, what I believe, the things that I believe are absolutely laughable. This is what he said. What I believe is absolutely laughable. I'm a complete idiot and I really need to watch more BBC for truth. If I want to learn the truth, watch the BBC. That's what he said to me. And at that point, this was in a text message. So we have spoken in the last 8 years via text message. I was voicing my concerns. And that was his response. And I, at that point, realized that he's gone. He's gone. He would have gone and had the jabba dabba do. He would have had both of them. He'll be lining up for the third one. So I just out of interest, what would he have to say about old Joe dumb as fuck Magoo Biden? And the way he's dealing with things, the answers that he gives. So we know that he's like Biden. He's been done twice for plagiarism. It's impossible for him to write his own speeches. He steals everything that he uses. There's no originality about him at all. Not capable of anything original, not capable of creating anything himself. So he It's been done twice for plagiarism. Caught, you know, caught outright, fair and square. One of the speeches that he plagiarized completely was Neil Kinnock. Neil Kinnock's speech. Neil Kinnock was the Labour leader in the UK. It's unbelievable when I heard about that. And I listened to Joe Biden giving his speech as if it was him. So it was just hilarious. So the other day, Jojo Magoo actually has the audacity, when he's questioned about what's going on and the decisions that were made and why it's all turned to shit, he says, yeah, I do accept responsibility, except really it was the guy before me. It wasn't, all I was doing, I was sticking to his plan. It was all his fault, really. So he's passing the buck again, right? The recent developments have shown Jojo Magoo in an even worse light. And the most recent interviews that I've seen with him, the guy, I mean, he's not even really functioning properly, is he? He can't talk properly. He's completely out of it. So I'm wondering, well, how is this happening? How is this happening? How are people like this there? How are they doing what they're doing? How are they allowed to be there? Seriously, this is beyond Idiocracy. This is beyond that movie, Idiocracy. And then today, this is what I heard. Listening to this, so I'm going to play.
Officials discussing.
This is the report, August 28th, 2021. Congress calls to review the invoking of the 25th Amendment. So I find out that Congress are looking to review the invoking of the 25th Amendment. I thought, oh wow, they're going to invoke him. They're what they talk? Are they talking about invoking the 25th Amendment on old Jojo Magoo? Wow, let's see, shall we?
The amendment for Trump following violence at the Capitol. This was.
Let us see, shall we?
Stories today. We're going to start with the shock and awe campaign that the House has now put down. That's right. The House called for a review of the invoking of the 25th Amendment with a huge twist. I know many of you may have read that and thought immediately, it's about darn time. But that's not the case. No, it's concerning Trump. Again. And here we go again. Over and over with the same saga. But you see, there's a huge need now. A huge need for a change in direction, a change in focus. They have a big problem. Biden's Afghanistan debacle, what is now showing is many signs. He won't take questions from reporters. He turns his back on reporters more than any president that's ever been seen. And don't think for a minute Democrats aren't concerned about that. They have the midterm elections coming up. So what do? They fall back on what they do best. Endless trials, show trials, to break the confidence of the American people, to assure that during the midterm elections, that's right, the Democrats maintain power. Don't think for a moment it's any more or less than that. We're going to cover the elements of what this new trial is going to bring and what they're requesting, which shows you, well, everything you need to know. Now, before we get there, if you haven't gone over to Restrict the Republic yet, we're going to have a secondary broadcast today, as I always do. Harsh reality check. Data coming out now is showing that you really got to have all the facts behind you. Because what if there is no silver bullet? What if it doesn't exist? What if the guidance has been wrong? What if everything we should be doing, we maybe haven't been doing? And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution either. So you see the multiple topics that we present at Restricted Republics, all topics you can't talk about anywhere else anymore. And trust me, that list grows daily. So if you haven't gone there, again, 2 discount codes. Discount code free, $5 a month, 24 months, 14 days for free. Discount code SAVE10 at annual checkout. Again, $10 off the annual subscription, 14 days for free, cancel anytime. But trust me, once you see the comments, once you see the videos, once you learn the content, there'll be nowhere else you're going for your news. But now let's get back to this story. As presented on the Hill, House probe focuses on Trump's mental health and martial law. 2 concerns that they're looking.
Right. So let's get this straight. When the current supposed commander-in-chief and president of the United States of America displays absolute clear signs of cognizant decline, being mentally impaired. He has memory issues. He doesn't know where he is. He fumbles words. He mumbles. Oh my God. The guy is a decrepit. He's what, 77? He looks like he's 90. He's like a 90-year-old man. I wouldn't trust him to look after a dog. I wouldn't trust him to look after a fucking hamster. I wouldn't trust him to look after my plants, for fuck's sake. Would you? Who would actually trust Joe Biden their plants? A cactus doesn't take a lot to look after a cactus. Would you trust Joe Biden to look after your cactus? Because I fucking wouldn't. No way, not a chance. So you see the projection. You see how it's clear to everybody. Anybody that denies it or refuses to see it, I don't really know what to say about those people. I can't judge them. I'm having to really, really work on my own judgment of people, and because at the end of the day, as far as punishment's concerned, as far as removing all authority and power from somebody who's displaying the characteristics that Biden displays to the world, that's not a jump. You know, I haven't just I fail to believe that there's anyone on this earth who's watching what's happening who doesn't think that this Jojo Magoo is well past being put out to pasture, has no place doing what he's doing now. What he's just done is just handed over $3 trillion worth of lithium to the Chinese Communist Party. That's what he's just done. He knows what he's done, and it also created a situation that can now be used perpetually. Oh no, threats of terrorism from Afghanistan again. Oh, they're all gonna, yeah, now it's gonna become a hotbed. All the terrorists from all over the world, they're all gonna go and sit in Afghanistan. They're all gonna plot against America and the rest of the world. And everybody forgets that both of the main forces that we're worried about in Afghanistan, both of them were created, trained, funded, and armed. They had two huge weapons cache upgrades, both of which came from exactly the same situation caused by the same Democratic Party. The first time was Obama, and this time it's Biden. This is all going on, and I'm sat here thinking, and these people, because, and it's not just, obviously, you know, I'm not American. I do not live in the United States. I live in a Spanish province, but we're all facing the same tyrannical one world system that's putting its boot down on us. We're all facing that. We're all facing that. And it just seems that America is the last kind of bastion. It's the last bastion of freedom. You know, they have their constitution. They have their arms. It's written in black and white. The people have the power. I don't think Spain has the same constitution. I don't think Spanish people have the same rights. And English white men in the current climate don't have any at all. We're all white supremacists, aren't we? According to mainstream. I am a white supremacist according to the mainstream. According to the current views of this woke society, because of some of the things I say and some of the things I believe, and mostly because of the color of my skin and the color of my eyes, I'm just labeled instantly and lumped into that group. And the complete ignorance of that is that I am 1/4 North African. My grandfather was a black man. So, and my mum is of a half-caste skin tone. My sister is very olive-skinned. I go extremely brown in the sun. And I say you can tell I don't sunbathe because I live in a sunny country, but I'm not as brown as I could be. But these people are expecting us to follow their rules, their legislations that they put in place. They're supposed to be our moral compass, are they? These morally bankrupt criminals, all of them, 100%, without, there's no, I'm sorry, there are no exceptions. All politicians are morally bankrupt criminals. All royalty are morally bankrupt criminals and enemies of the human race. All elite, I hope you're listening to me. There's only one way to redeem yourselves. Get on the right side. Denounce the wrong side. The only way. So all elites are morally bankrupt criminals. And they're expecting us to dance to their jig. They want me to dance to their jig. They're going to tell me that I don't have the right to do things. I've had enough. I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works in my reality. In my reality, you don't come and tell me shit. There's not one single man or woman that has the right to come and tell me shit. Nothing. The fact that I have to sit here and watch these people, they're not people, watch these creatures. The most confusing thing is that there are two narratives going on. One narrative's going on under the surface, and one narrative is obviously the official narrative. In the official narrative, we're screwed. In the official narrative, what they're doing, that's just the way it is. Or climate change, all of it. All of it. They are the all-powerful. They're the monarchs. We're the serfs. That's it. That's the official narrative. And the narrative that's going on under the surface, the one that I've got my ear to the ground listening to, is completely different. And it does make sense. But it seems the most worrying thing about it is that it's hopium. It's just hopium. But I do think that people need a bit of hopium, because if you're listening to the official mainstream narrative, there is no fucking hope. So a little bit of hopium isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it? And all of the things that are being said make sense. It's just, it makes sense in a blockbuster Hollywood movie. You'd expect to see it in a blockbuster Hollywood movie. But we've learned that blockbuster Hollywood movies have been used to program us. Is that why? Is that why it's playing out like this? Is that why they're playing it out like this? Because they know that it's the only way that people are going to accept it, because people are so programmed by the telly box that they need the telly box to program them into the new way of thinking, because they're incapable of thinking for themselves. There's so many things that I want to say and I can't say them. It's infuriating, because they'll be taken the wrong way, because people will be offended, because most people aren't emotionally or intellectually matured enough to even grasp what it is that I'm trying to say. But anyway, listen to more of this.
Into. The committee is zeroing in on the period from election day to inauguration day and wants agencies to turn over all documents and communications related to the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which allows the vice president and a majority of cabinet members to remove the president if they believe he is unfit for office. They want to see.
Right. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to do this court case right around the time of the midterm elections. It's all a big distraction. And it's all because, I mean, this is the biggest joke of it. We're nearly a year into the new presidency, and they still can't stop talking about Mr. T. They can't stop. Even like Pelosi and Biden, Pelosi, they're both consumed by their hatred for the guy. And so absolutely everything is all focused still on Mr. T. And you've really got to ask, why is that? Why is that, man? Because it's beyond a joke now. This is the sort of behaviour that I expected to see in the in middle school. You know, this is middle school behaviour from these supposed adults. Pelosi is 81 years old. Biden is 77 years old. Just a quick aside, has anybody noticed how George Soros actually looks like a baby? His face, he looks like a baby, and his eyes, they look like Stewie's eyes on Family Guy when Stewie looks really crazy, or when he hasn't had any sleep or something and his eyes are, that's what George Soros's eyes look like. He looks like Stewie but without the football shaped head. He's just a great big blob of a man, but he looks like a freaking baby.
Who is asking for that in the administration?
Oh yeah, that was it. That's what I was going to say. So this, I mean, my internal reaction to this when I heard it was visceral, man. It was a physical, internal sensation that I had when I heard this. And then I thought about it and I listened to what they're saying they're asking for.
Also asking to relay all documents and communications related to the mental stability of Donald Trump or his fitness for office following January 6th, when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol. So now we're going to question.
Right. Let's just put that into context as well. The FBI has admitted to the world that there was no insurrection or plans of insurrection, no organized assault. It was not an assault. It was, and there's video footage, there's recorded footage of them saying, this is peaceful, we must remain peaceful, all we're doing is we're here to, you know, stand up because we have a right to be here, have our voices heard, but this is peaceful. And there's video footage of the Capitol Police letting them in. So, you know, the Democrats fiercely pushing still this attempt to overthrow, when it's proven that it was instigated by the FBI, Antifa, and boom. I guess because I don't watch mainstream, because I can't watch mainstream, my head would explode. My brain will turn to custard and explode out of my ears if I listen to mainstream. Because I don't keep my ear to the ground with the mainstream that closely. I rely on other people to do that. I really don't. I know that the left-wing media is starting to turn on old Jojo Magoo. They're starting to turn on him. They're starting to point out his shortfallings, the lack of planning behind what's happened recently. I mean, it seems very, very clear to me that it's all happening very conveniently around the time that these audits are being done, full forensic audits, the results of which are coming out very soon. Just seems a bit coincidental to me that this would be happening. And oh look, and that suddenly, boom, out of nowhere, the Egyptian deity pops up again. And the last, it was like 10 or 20 years ago, the last time really that we were hearing that name. Just how convenient that they were let out of prison and let through a checkpoint to be able to go and blow up some people. How convenient, man. How convenient that that happened. Didn't seem like that was pre-planned at all, did it? I don't think that that was pre-planned at all, man. I certainly don't think that that certain alphabet agencies had anything to do with that. No, don't be daft. What, are you saying that that could have even been? No, that couldn't possibly be suggesting that, could I? No, of course not. Of course not. This is all God's honest grassroots erotism. Said it wrong deliberately. There's certain words, aren't there, man? Certain words. If you say them too much, you'll get flagged. So, my initial reaction to this was not pleasant. But then once I listened to what they're asking for, and then I remembered what was being said in the back channels, in the quiet, well, it's not quiet, obviously, but it's only a certain percentage of people that are listening to these messages. And they're classed as right-wing activists and all that sort of stuff, and white supremacists, and that it's all lumped into that because that was part of the Democrats. That's how they operate, They've projected all of their own behavior, their own organizations, their own actions onto the other side. Everything that they're accusing people of, they're doing themselves. When Biden, this is the funniest thing as well. This is like talking backwards and double speak and all of that, right? When Biden was criticized and he turned around and said, no, I'm very happy with the way things have gone. It couldn't have gone any better, man. This is we're happy. This is the best that we could have expected, and we're happy with the way that things have gone. Right? And it's just completely, he's so disconnected from what's going on. But he's not. He's not disconnected from it. He is very happy. Do you know who else is very happy? Xi Jinping, or whatever his name is. China's very happy. His puppet masters are very happy. They're being honest. He's not lying. I've said this before. When they turn around, when the Democrat Party turn around and say, there is a clear and present danger and threat to our democracy, they're implying that it's coming from the Democrats and from Mr. T. That's what they're implying. They're saying that, yes, there is a bloody threat, but it's coming from them. Yes, they are very happy about the way things are going, because it's exactly what the puppet masters want. They want this conflict. They want this. They want the ability to be able to go and, you know, terrorize people again. They want that ability. They need it. It's the only one of the only tools that they have, because they're not creative, because they're unable to think of new ideas and make new plans that, you know, think in different ways, because they are unable to think outside of their boxes. They do the same thing over and 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 over again. Let's listen to some more.
Trump's mental fitness, his fitness for office. After everything that's going on right now, should that be the investigation?
Right. So they're looking into, what they're asking for is the details of who suggested that we should look into Trump's mental fitness and the 25th Amendment. What occurred to me today was that they could be looking at that to then say to the Democrats, well, hang on a second, look, these were the reasons given, this is who voted for it, and these were the reasons given. Okay, so why haven't you done it with the current president? If you were so quick to do it with Donald Trump, why have you not done it with the current president? And it's one way of highlighting to the dumbass sheeple out there that still need to be woken up. It's another way of highlighting to them, look, this double standard. Trying to be optimistic about it, you know? Trying to look on the positive side, because I'm so used to looking at things with a negative spin, and I'm trying really hard not to do that, but it's really difficult. It's really difficult to realize that, yeah, but I always put the negative spin on it because, you know, it always turns out negatively. Well, what if it always turned out negatively because you always put a negative spin on it? Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah. If we're living in a reality where actually we're co-creating what's going on, and we have some responsibility, and I bear responsibility for the shit things that are going on, even if it's just through, you know, it's not because I'm a bad person. I don't bear responsibility because I'm a bad person and it's karma and you know, it's that. I bear responsibility because I'm allowing myself to continue on with the programming that I've received, and that programming has taught me to always look at something with an air of caution. That, you know, when things like this happen, it's a shit thing and it's negative, blah. But there's all this stuff going on in the background that most people don't know about. And like I said, whether it's hopium or not, it does actually make sense. A lot of it does make sense. And there are these little bells going off in my heart that are going, yeah, this is resonating. There has to be some truth in this. Because it's not, I mean, who really believes that it can really truly be that bleak? Who really truly believes that it could actually be the dark side is going to win and the devil and all his minions are going to rule, and we're all going to hell. Who actually believes that, man? Who actually believes that that America is going to turn into a full-on communist, just another arm or branch of the CCP? Who actually believes that that's actually going to happen? I've been on the truth train for 8 years, coming up 9 years, and we've been saying, like, in the communities, people have been saying, always been saying, oh, it's going to take a lot to wake up the masses, man. It's going to take a lot to wake up the masses. And I try to remind myself and other people, certainly with myself, from my own experience, somebody tried to wake me up in 2008. And I was still, I wasn't ready to wake up. And I dismissed him. I thought he'd lost the plot and gone insane. I dismissed him and I stopped talking to him. And then 5 years later, 5 years later, I fell down a rabbit hole. Well, I didn't fall, I climbed. I saw a rabbit hole and I climbed into it. And I ended up in that warren for years. But it took, for me to be interested in that rabbit hole, took a lot of pain and anguish. Experiencing a lot of pain and anguish, emotional, spiritual, physical. That's what it took for me to walk past a rabbit hole and go, huh, do you know what? I'm going to go and have a look down there. And literally within 12 hours of walking into that rabbit hole, I remembered my friend 5 years earlier who tried to wake me up to these things. And I contacted him and said, dude, I'm really sorry, man. You were right. And I did what actually probably no truth, there aren't many truthers that have ever had this happen. But I can say that I went to the truther that tried to wake me up. I went to him and I said, dude, I'm sorry. You were right. I was wrong. I did it. I did that. No, I was going to say not one person has with me, but that's not true. That's not true. Sonny here in Tenerife ridiculed me for years about the shape of the earth. Ridiculed me on Facebook, in public, in private. He ridiculed me. And I woke him up. And he, as good as, said, well, I'm sorry, you were right and I was wrong. I woke him up and he saw things as they are. So I did have it repaid to me. I did have one person that had ridiculed me apologized to me later. But it doesn't happen often. I don't think it happens for everyone. It doesn't happen often, man.
Taking the forefront. Again, how many billions of dollars and how much equipment have we lost? How many lives?
Oh, yeah. This is something that just kind of made me laugh a little bit. Was that already they're talking about speaking to the Afghans and saying, right, what can we do? What do we need to give you? How can we arm you and fund you? We've just given $80 billion worth of hardware to the enemy, same as we did the last time we botched the withdrawal from And so we're going to spend another, what are they going to do? Spend another 80 billion on hardware and give that to the Afghans again, so that they've got the same, oh, look, they need to build a level playing field, man. Because now, truth is, the Taliban are all totally 100% up to date with their hardware. They've got night vision, they've got drones, they've got biometric scanning software and hardware. They are, man, they've been brought into the 21st century. It was Christmas for the Taliban. I just got to say, all right, before I say anything else,
Maybe lost due to the horrific handling of Afghanistan, but the Democrats know how to distract. There's no question of that. They are very efficient at it. Officials discussing 25th Amendment for Trump following violence past the Capitol, published back in January. It all comes full circle now. That House panel investigating January 6th attack seeks records from agencies on insurrection. Trump is first request. The first person they're requesting information from is Trump. He has a response though. But before we get to his response, in letters demanding materials from the National Archives and 7 other agencies, Representative Benny Thompson, Democrat out of Mississippi, the committee chairman, signaled that an expansive investigation is underway, touching not only what happened January 6th, but also on matters such as the former president's knowledge of the election results and what he communicated to the American people about the election. You're going to see all the pieces start to fit together now, at least in the eyes of the Democrats. Our Constitution provides for a peaceful transfer of power, and this investigation seeks to evaluate threats that process, identify lessons learned, and recommend laws, policies, procedures, rules, or regulations necessary to protect our republic in the future. They're expanding this investigation, aren't they? They're gaining insight and material. They'll apply that insight and material to new policies, more laws, more procedures, and more rules, and who do you think those will benefit? I can assure you, it will be no party other than the Democrats, but let's go forward. The request includes information on communications within and among the White House and executive branch agencies during the lead up to January 6th and on that day, as well as on issues further removed, such as attempts to place politically loyal personnel in senior positions across the government after the election. Now that lends to a much different topic. Now Trump does have a response before we get to that other topic. In a statement Wednesday night, Trump said the committee's requests were part of a partisan exercise and suggested he would try to block them by asserting executive privilege. The leftist select committee has further exposed itself as a partisan sham and a waste of taxpayers' dollars with a request of time to distract Americans from historic and global catastrophes brought on by the failures of Joe Biden and the Democrats. Many Americans would agree with that statement. Trump makes executive privilege threat. His House committee seeks documents from agencies on the January 6th attack. Executive privilege will be defended, not just on behalf of my administration.
all right, I'm just going to say again, yes, there was an attack on that day. There was an attack, but it didn't come from a single Republican. There wasn't a Republican. It had nothing to do with Mr. T. It was an attack from far left activists posing as Republicans. And that's, anybody with any brains knows that. Anybody with any brains at all. And if you don't know it, it's because all you do is watch mainstream media. And if all you do is watch mainstream media, you're dumb as fuck. There is no hope for you at all. You're not qualified to have a conversation or a discussion about these things. if basically the sort of person that the only way they know about the world is through mainstream media, they're not qualified to talk to us. Sorry. So how you doing, Jim? William, Dean, Kiwi, Elise, and Ben. Don't know if who's still here. Don't know if you can hear me. Oh, I might put the camera on eventually, maybe. Let's have another little listen to what I listen to. These are the things that I listen to, and I'm just going to make a disclaimer. Just because I listen to this doesn't mean to say that I believe it. Just because I listen to these things doesn't mean to say that I'm going along with them. I just want to make that very clear. I'm listening to what these people are saying. That's all I'm doing. I'm observing what's being said in the back channels.
The EBS. Everybody's asking about the EBS and when the truth's coming out.
So the truth will be delivered over 10 systems over the world. There's 10 separate systems. I don't know which language they're going to use in some of those, because obviously some of those countries are going to have multiple countries. So I'm sure they'll have sign language, and they'll have subtitles and stuff like that. Maybe they'll have a dial where you can pick. But
for the benefit of those that don't know, the EBS is the Emergency Broadcast System, except it's not the EBS anymore. It's not the emergency broad. I'm not sure when. I want to say it was in the 70s, 71, but I really don't know. So you'll have to look into this. But it changed. It used to be that the president could override all broadcasts, all in the nation, every single on every single television and on every single radio station. The emergency broadcast system would be broadcasting, and that's all you'd hear. But that changed, and now it's like an announcement system, and it only gets played if the network agrees to play it. It doesn't override their system anymore. Now they have to agree to it. And what's being said is that they've tried to do it. They've tried to do this EBS system, because that's what the QAnon lot have been talking about the whole time, that they're going to do this EBS, and that they're going to play these 8-hour-long videos of the tribunals that apparently have been taking place in the White House and in Gitmo. These tribunals have been taking place, apparently. What we're seeing is a pantomime, apparently. It's all happened. We've already won. And basically, we're just waiting for them to announce it, but they're not going to announce it until 80% of, I don't know if it's the country or 80% of the world is awake to what's happening. They need 80% of the world to be awake to what's happening before they can tell everybody what's actually happening, because it's the only way to reduce the risk of freakouts, of civil unrest. Basically, it's to minimize the fallout, to minimize the fallout from what will happen when people learn this information. This information is next level. It's, you know, that I heard the other day that that Adam Schiff was executed in 2020 by firing squad, and that he cried when it happened. But then I saw the other day that he's gone to Gitmo for life. So there's so much misinformation in the air. I don't believe anything. I don't believe anything. I listen to the things that, I listen to everything, and the things that resonate, or if there's a little bell that goes, basically, in my heart, this little bell goes ding-a-ling-a-ling, then I might remember it, and I might think to look out for it again in the future, and to look for things to back it up. And I ask for guidance, and I pray and say, can you please confirm this to me? Is this real? Is this true?
It will show everywhere because it's against the law. And this is how strict the law is. Not only are the people that run the companies that are the streaming companies going to go to jail, they lose their whole company. If the company fails on purpose, deliberately, to show the message, we're acquiring their whole company by law. They will lose it, and they will go to jail for treason. So it is going to be shown on every streaming service there is. If you have a screen, I don't care what it is, I don't care which service it is, it's going to show. And it's not the 10 days of darkness, it's the 10 days of lightness. So you're already in the dark. They're going to enlighten you. So you're going to see the truth. That's the Great Awakening. So there's going to be the first 3 days will be probably the water, and then get off. And they're going to show you an 8-hour movie 3 times a day for 3 days. So they're going to show it 9 times. An 8-hour movie 9 times. 8, 9, 17 Q. Go figure. So you're going to want to stay home. When you see what they're going to show you in those 8-hour movies 3 times a day for 3 days, everybody, I don't care if you got a phone or you have a TV, you're going to be telling somebody else, you're going to be telling somebody else. It's going to spread like wildfire. And everybody's going to get the message. Everybody's going to get the truth.
What they should do is they should play it 3 times a day, 6 days a week for 9 weeks.
Everybody's going to know what's going on. It's unescapable. You can't escape it. And you're going to have to be home, or you're going to be arrested. Which means when the criminals are at home, we're just going to go arrest them. Now, I believe there's 1.5 million people in the United States who are going to get arrested. Now, not all of them are going to get the death penalty, but some of them are going to be going to jail for quite lengthy sentences. Some maybe not so long, but they're going to get a lesson taught to them for what they've done, their role they've played in this movie. It's not really a movie, it's our life.
So, I mean, the reason I listen to this is because it is how it should be. This is how it should be. And in the reality that I choose to exist in, the reality that I want, that's what will happen. Justice for the people. Exposure of the hypocrisy and the lies and the deception, the tyranny, brutality, criminal behavior. These people being exposed for exactly what they are and given to the public to deal with. It should be just given to the public to deal with. That's what should happen. And so I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh no, this is all bullshit, this isn't happening, this is bullshit. I'm gonna listen to what's being said and think, well, it is possible that this is what's happening. Because they have full control of the mainstream media still. They still have full control of the mainstream media. The mainstream media are complete 100% complicit sellouts. They're prostitutes, nothing more. Because of that, it is possible for those people in control, or that appear to be in control, to still remain to appear to be in control. But what if they're not? What if they're not in control? What if this really is all a big pantomime. What if all the videos that we're watching of old Jojo Magoo, and Pelosi and all of them, what if they're all deep fake videos and these people have already been dealt with? What if they've already been executed? They're already gone. They no longer exist in this realm. And what we're seeing is deep fake, and it's being done in a way to slowly disclose to the masses what's going on, because it's the only way that they will be able to process the information. Everybody should feel, everybody that's feeling the same or similar should just be really happy, because you are an intelligent, you're an extremely intelligent, consciously aware human being, and they're not. You don't need to be led up to the pool of freezing water and actually dunked in it. You can see that the water's freezing cold. You know that you've got to get up, and so you're up. And I just want to say, nice one to you, man. Jim, William, hey, I've just worked out how to look at my chat. Turn the temperature up, turn it down. People's attention span seems to be 0. Yeah. Isn't that true? Paul from Newcastle, how you doing, buddy? How are you, mate? So yeah, this is my backup channel. I've got to give everybody wrenches, haven't I?
They're messing with. And as far as when does it go? Well, there's some coding that says something about 9/11 since it's Jesus' birthday. It's not Christmas Day. Are you kidding me? Everybody knows in the church that nobody will say it's his day. We celebrate that day, but nobody knows when it is. We don't even know the day he died. They celebrate Easter over a 30-day period. So what day did he die? No one's got an answer. Let's go with the sun, since these guys are sun gods. The sun goes south every day until the darkest day of the year, which is a lie, because on that day it's still moving south. But on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, it doesn't move north or south. The sun dies for 3 days. Ever heard that one before? The sun dies for 3 days? Interesting. And then on Christmas Day, the 25th, the sun moves a quarter of a degree north on the horizon.
All right, so even in these channels, they're talking about now that like lots of people are turning to God, aren't they? And the Bible, but they're still seeing that they still haven't been completely honest about that, have they? There's still more programming.
Let's begin today's discussion by talking about John Durham. Now, in case you don't know, John Durham is the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Connecticut, and he is also...
Oh, I can tell instantly that this is, what's his name, from the, as he says it, the Epic Times. The Epic Times, it's the Epic Times. It's spelled E-P-O-C-H. It's Epoch, the Epoch Times. Why does everybody call it the Epic Times when it's the Epoch Times? That really bugs me. It's Epoch, not Epic. Ugh. Anyway,
also the special counsel who is currently investigating the FBI's actions back in 2016. That was, of course, when the FBI was engaging in an operation that they internally dubbed Operation Crossfire Hurricane, wherein they spied on a Trump campaign advisor. And potentially, actually, they might have spied on the entire campaign. It's what's colloquially known as Spygate. Now, John Durham has been quietly conducting this investigation for over 2 full years now. And I do mean quietly. He has offered very little updates to the public as to what is actually happening behind the scenes. However, according to this letter right here, which was just sent to the Department of Justice, and it was co-signed by 44 Republican senators, they are urging that the final report be made public once it comes out, which is actually something that I'm frankly surprised that they even have to ask for, given the fact that the Mueller report, when it came out,
Brian Tucker
not
from
only was it
Florida.
made
How you
public,
doing, man?
but it even became a bestseller over on Amazon. But I guess it just goes to show how little coverage the Durham investigation has gotten in relation to the Mueller investigation. A lot of people have actually forgotten that it's even happening altogether. Regardless, let's go through this letter together. So it's officially...
Hey, big shout out to Florida. Big shout out to the governor of Florida.
addressed to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, quote, 2 years ago, your predecessor appointed United States Attorney John Durham to conduct a review of the origins of the FBI's investigation into Russian collusion in the 2016 United States presidential election. Mr. Durham was later elevated to special counsel in October of 2020, so he would continue his work with greater investigatory authority and independence. Now, I would just like to pause here for a quick moment and mention that, in case you forgot, during President Trump's administration, during the first 2 years, you might remember that the story of Russian collusion was on the airwaves nonstop, pretty much around the clock. In fact, there was an analysis by the Media Research Center, which found that during President Trump's first 2.5 years in office, the Russian collusion story was the most covered topic on the major news networks. ABC, CBS, and NBC, they collectively spent a total of 2,284 minutes of their news coverage talking about Russian collusion, which was almost 90% of all their Trump-related news. However, that pretty much all ended when Special Counsel Bob Mueller released this report and concluded that there was no actual evidence of this Russian collusion, at least none that he found. But the fact that there was no actual evidence didn't stop many of the legacy media outlets from propagating this false narrative for over 2 years. And so the question became, what actually started this narrative? What was the linchpin that set off the Crossfire Hurricane investigation? What was its predication? Because up until today, we know a lot of different pieces of the puzzle. However, we are missing the central investigation, which is, of course, what John Durham is supposedly up to. He's the one who's investigating whether this whole thing was properly predicated, meaning whether the FBI's course of action was rational and logical from the evidence that they supposedly had. Which brings us back to this letter, which continues as follows, quote, the special counsel's ongoing work is important to many Americans who are disturbed that government agents subverted lawful process to conduct inappropriate surveillance for political purposes. The truth pursued by this investigation is necessary to ensure transparency in our intelligence agencies and restore faith in our civil liberties. Thus, it is essential that the special counsel's ongoing review should be allowed to continue unimpeded and without undue limitations. Now, to pause here for another quick moment, when they wrote to ensure transparency in our intelligence agencies and restore faith in our civil liberties, that is really worth highlighting. Because according to an earlier report, which was released back in 2019 by Michael Horowitz, who is the Inspector General of the Justice Department, he found that there were 17 major errors and omissions in the FBI's request for spy warrants. And think about that for a moment. The FBI went over to the FISA court in order to request FISA spy warrants against a former Trump campaign advisor. And FISA warrants, in case you're not aware, are really supposed to be used to surveil foreign actors. Usually they're used against foreign terrorists. However, the FBI presented a case that Trump's campaign advisor was having suspicious dealings with a Russian national, while at the same time hiding from that FISA judge that this campaign advisor was actually reporting these interactions to the CIA, meaning that these were likely not secretive interactions which were being kept from the US government, but they were actually being reported to the US government. However, as we mentioned in a previous episode, one of the FBI's lawyers was actually applying for these spy warrants. He altered an email from the CIA, making it seem like this Trump campaign advisor was not working with the CIA and instead talking to this Russian agent under the table. And it's likely exactly these type of things that I just mentioned that this letter is referring to, because if a private citizen who just happens to work on a political campaign can be surveilled using this kind of a serious spy warrant, which is typically reserved for foreign terrorists, if the FBI can lie in the application and then no one is held accountable, well, that can certainly reduce people's faith in what it's, in the intelligence communities and in our civil liberties. So then the letter goes on and concludes by making 2 requests of the Attorney General. It says, quote, to that end, we ask that you provide an update on the status of Special Counsel Durham's inquiry and that the investigation's report be made available to the public upon completion. And so what they did is they requested an update. They called in the Attorney General to make the final report publicly available when it comes out, and they asked you to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Now, seriously though, while we here at the Epoch Times, we did reach out to the Justice Department for comment on this matter, but we have yet to hear back. However, one of the senators who co-signed this letter wrote a complimentary statement saying this: "We are over 2 years into the investigation of how the Obama-Biden FBI spied on an incoming president, and we still do not have answers. America's national security apparatus was weaponized to take down President Trump, and the American people deserve to know how this occurred." Furthermore, Congressman Darrell Issa, he's a Republican from California, and he also sits on the House Judiciary Committee, and he recently had an interview over on Fox News where he said that this letter, as well as the Durham investigation as a whole, is a real test to see whether Merrick Garland is truly a neutral attorney general.
You know what gets me most about this whole situation, especially about the audits, like the forensic audits, and the amount of obstacles and pushback and rejection coming from the Democrats. They're doing absolutely everything in their power. They're even breaking the law. They're breaking the law to not comply with, you know, legal subpoenas and for information that would help clarify the results of last year's election. And it was meant to be the most secure in history. It was meant to be the most secure in history. So in that case, then they'll have all the records, because they have to keep them. It's part of the statute. They have to keep them for what, 6 years or 26 years or something. They have to keep them. Everything. They have to keep it. So in that case, if it's the most secure, then it was the most legal. If it's the most legal, then they've got the documents of everything. And if it was legitimate, why aren't they just giving everything that's requested and saying, yeah, sure, okay, here you go. There's all the ballot papers. There's all the go on, count everything. Go and do a full forensic audit on everything. All you're going to prove is that we're telling the truth. That's what honest people who are telling the truth, that's what they do. They say, yep, okay. You're accusing me of lying. Here's the proof that I'm telling the truth. If you're lying, then you need to hide things, especially things that prove that you're lying. Holistic Media, how you doing? Especially things that prove that you're lying. The last thing you want to do if you're a liar and somebody's investigating something that you're lying about, the last thing you want to do is give them the evidence that will prove that you lied. And those are the only circumstances under which it's you know, that would happen. Those are the only circumstances under which that would happen. If they're telling the truth and there was no FRAUD, then they should have no problem in disclosing all the details of everything, because it will only prove that they were telling the truth and there was no FRAUD. How you doing, Rev? There is a punishment for it, isn't there? But you save yourself by telling the truth and coming clean and going state's evidence and all of that. And then they say, then they spare your life and you spare you the death penalty, and you then languish the next 20 to 25 years in prison because you need to be punished. If somebody does something wrong and they confess to it before they're caught out for it, then that shows true repentance and perhaps the need for a lenient punishment. if somebody's only admitting to something because they've been caught, and as soon as they're caught, they admit to it, they should still be considered for a slightly more lenient punishment. But if somebody not only doubles down, triples down, quadruples down, if somebody piles down so much on top of their assertion that they are telling the truth, and they refuse to admit until the last second, the last moment, they're not repenting. They don't repent what they've done. They don't truly wish to atone for their sins. So maybe they should be spared the death penalty. No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. Biden, no. Pelosi, no. Schiff, no. Cuomo, no. None of them. None of them. None of the main leaders. None of the main figureheads in this. None of the main actors in this absolute farce of a pantomime. Me judging. There's me judging. That's me saying, no, they should be killed. Oh, no. So I take that back, all right, and I catch myself again. And I take that back. I don't know. They should be tried and punished. Spend the rest of their lives in prison, incarcerated, with no liberty. They should be humiliated, absolutely humiliated. They should be humiliated. That's only fair, come on. They are humiliated in front of the entire earth. Bring back tar and feathering. Put them in the stocks and let the people throw rotten fruit at them.
Here's what he said. This is a test of the Attorney General. Is the Attorney General wearing the proper hat of the highest law enforcement officer, neutral?
Oh, medical freedom protest in London. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. I can't share the screen. Unfortunately, I can't share the screen because my laptop isn't. It's not capable. It seizes up. Right. These thumbnails are just describing to you. Democrats were arrested. Arizona Senate Democrats issue statement en masse. Except that's not what's happened. That's not what is being discussed. It's very deceiving. It's a very deceiving thumbnail. But let's listen.
Arizona State Senate Democrats issued a statement about their state senator that was arrested. And I will read you the statement. Check out my segment prior to this one with the links, and the link will be below to the NBC News article and to the statement itself.
There is no link below.
So
Just for FYI, there is no link. If there was a link, I would put it in the chat, but there is no link
Find out the statement from
to what he's talking about. This is from Ola, premiered 9 hours ago. And this, yeah, there are a bunch of these channels with strange names that they're mirrored, or they're not even mirrored. It's the audio. All you get is the audio, and then they use other footage. It's all a bit weird, but this is where I'm getting this information from.
So the Democrats confirming the arrest of a state senator, Tony Navarrete. Now, he did something, or accused of doing something, is arrested for doing something pretty horrendous, heinous, terrible. I think you could probably imagine the worst thing possible. And there was some critique from my last segment. Oh, you're not explaining what he did. You can literally scroll down maybe like a couple of inches. It takes less than a split second, and you could find out and read exactly what he did. I'm trying to continue reporting on things that nobody else is talking about. So you can go to MSNBC, you can go to CNN, you can go to Fox News now. I don't think Fox News is talking about this yet. So simply go down to the article. There is an algorithm that every YouTuber has to address. Even people that really push the envelope, they still have to address the algorithm. I'm trying my best.
Ain't that the truth?
This is a story that is probably one of the biggest news stories that nobody's going to talk about today and this weekend. Very few outlets will talk about this. You have an ABC reporter and an NBC News an ABC affiliate in Arizona. The link is below, and you have a reporter, Nicole Valdez, tweeting out information on the Senate Democrats' statement on arrest of Democratic senator. So their statement is the following: we are aware of our members. We are aware one of our members has been arrested and are awaiting further details for law enforcement to do its job. We will not have further comment at this time. I find this very interesting that nobody is talking about this arrest, because you had more disdain and contempt. You had more publicity about the Arizona recount, which was passed the state legislature, the state Senate, upheld by two different judges. One recused himself. Whatever you think of the recount, people think it's embarrassing. Oh my goodness, it's still the epitome of democracy. It went through the state legislature, and it was upheld by the courts. So what's the problem? They've spent endless hours, or like there's an article a day or every other day in the Arizona Republic on how horrendous and embarrassing and terrible this recount is. And it's like you have Republicans in the state legislature stating they want arrests, and it's like the arrest is actually for something really, really atrocious, and probably the worst crime you could think of from what I've read. So I find the difference in reporting. You're going to see a completely different manner of reporting on this issue than you did with like Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz. They were accused of, or like Jim Jordan was accused of knowing of something horrendous, like a terrible taking place. They never had any evidence that he knew anything. So Democrats and media, well, I should say Democrats online, especially on Twitter, that's all they think about when they think about Jim Jordan. And with the Florida Republican, they say, oh, he's being investigated. He hasn't been arrested. The difference is that you have a Democratic senator, state senator, arrested for what they have heard possibly two Republicans either knew about or, are being investigated for. They spend more time on the allegations of Republicans. They will have spent more time, or they will spend more time on the allegations of against Republicans that support Trump than the actual arrest of a Democratic lawmaker in Arizona. Okay, I want to see, I had some critique, in the last segment from a couple of viewers. I'm like, well, what you couldn't read between the lines. You couldn't find out what this man is accused of doing and arrested for possibly having done. So it's like the links are there. Okay, imagine the worst crime you could think of ever. Okay, so that's what he was accused of doing. That's what he's being arrested for. If this was a Republican, it would be the first thing CNN and MSNBC would be talking about. They're not even mentioning it. They're talking about how Trump tried to, they're saying that Trump was directly responsible with what took place in January. So indict him. So charge him with a crime. Go just in tax returns, charge him with a crime. You can't, because you have nothing on him. The endless speculation and conjecture and hyperbole and Trump is a menace. Oh, you can't find a crime after 5 years. It's the 5-year anniversary of Crossfire Hurricane. You can't find a crime to indict him on. By the way, if you enjoy this segment, there's just super thanks right next to the like and the share buttons. So super thanks is.
This is what gets me, right? If we were all part of an organization that we saw this sort of behavior from these sorts of people, the universe that I was born into, the place that I remember 20 years ago, or well, longer now, 30 years ago, the place that I remember 30 years ago, these people would have been dragged out on their arses. They would have been made a spectacle of. They would have been disgraced. And kicked into. That's the perception of the world that I had 30 years ago when I was 14. If I'd seen this behavior, that's what I would have expected to happen. It's just blowing my fucking mind apart that it's happening, that I'm witnessing it, that I'm basically what I'm watching is a bunch of children who should have no responsibilities whatsoever. They should have all of their toys taken away from them. They should be grounded and disciplined severely. But they're running countries and they're writing laws. And they're telling me that they are morally superior to me. After I spent 20 years purging myself, correcting myself, trying to better myself, trying to become a better version, trying to recognize and address the things that make me less of a man. Always questioning my own motives for things to ensure that I understand why I'm doing things. Always psychoanalyzing myself, because I'm psychoanalyzing everyone I know, everyone I meet. I've psychoanalyzed every single one of you. Every single person that I've interacted with, I psychoanalyze everyone. Everyone. It's just the way I am. Armchair psychologist. Because I want to understand. I want to understand people. I want to understand situations. I want to understand myself. And I want to better myself. I want to have more friends. I want more respect. You know, I want to be appreciated. Well, I can't expect any of those things if I'm not worthy of them. And up until this point, I don't know what I'm worthy of. But I do know that I've done my best, man. Done my absolute best under the circumstances that I've found myself in, or that I've put myself in, or that my decisions have landed me in. But what's going on now, we can all say, this is not, I mean, all right, we've allowed this to happen. This is our fault as a collective. It's our fault because we've allowed it to happen. We didn't stand up soon enough. Not enough people were awake. But everything, divine timing, I believe quite strongly in divine timing. Everything happens when it should. And so if everybody hasn't woken up yet, they haven't woken up yet. And that's why these things that I'm hearing about on the back channels, EBS, digital, the quantum banking system, Jasara, Nasara, you know, that none of it's actually materialized yet. None of it's manifested yet because not enough people are aware of it. If enough people were aware of it, then it would manifest. That's why the dark side is doing their best to keep it suppressed and keep it hidden and keep the general public, the masses, from conscious awareness of it, helping to stop it from manifesting. They don't want it to manifest because when it manifests, it's the end for them because the power is given back to the people. And it seems like a fairy tale ending, and I forget who it was I was speaking to the other day about it. But it seems like a fairy tale ending. But why shouldn't that happen? And it will be ironic for the deep state for it to be a fairy tale ending because they've spent our lives programming us through Hollywood. So it's the ultimate irony, isn't it? That ultimately they just fulfill their own prophecy. They are the bad guys. The bad guys never win. They never prosper. Good always triumphs over evil. And it will be a fairy tale ending where everybody is given back their power. They're given back their wealth. You imagine living in a realm where everyone is wealthy, where money doesn't really matter anymore. It's not about how much money you have, because everybody's got money. Well, what do you need money for anyway when electricity's free and as a result travel is free? If electricity and travel, if all power basically is free, what do you need money for? Well, clothes and stuff, and gadgets, and well, if everybody's got enough money for all of that, then it is going to be the end of kind of commercialism, isn't it? Really, right? It's not going to be the same competitive market if everybody's got money to spend. What does that matter? Well, that means that we'll have to focus our attentions somewhere else. Well, how about on expanding our own abilities? That's where the focus of attention will go, into bettering, into becoming. You know, there'll be yoga and spiritual meditation classes and psychedelic, you know, ayahuasca experiences and stuff popping up everywhere, because everybody they won't be focused on material stuff anymore. They'll be focused on healing the spirit, healing the connection with earth, getting connected to each other, healing the connections with each other. You know, this is a fairy tale ending, and it's the ultimate FU to the bad guys. That's the only ending that I can really perceive happening. I can't even perceive the other ending, because the other ending ultimately leads to the end of everything, because it, you know, ultimately destroys itself. Corruption ultimately corrupts and destroys itself. How long like cancer, once cancer is completely consumed an organ, the strange thing about cancer is cancer destroys its host, and in destroying its host, it ultimately destroys itself. And that's what we're dealing with is a cancer. They're not going to be able to destroy their host. They can't, because they're not that stupid. They know ultimately that if they destroy the host, they destroy themselves. We are the host. Yeah, right. So this is Holistic Media. The Iraq currency has a re-evaluation alert on it online. It's been there a few days. What they're saying is that that's going to be the start, isn't it? When they release that, because they're re-evaluating all currencies, going back to the gold standard and all of that. Apparently, there is $100 bill out in circulation now. The new $100 bill apparently has it has a gold bar on it, right? Like a little impression of a gold bar, and it's 24 karat gold leaf on that gold bar on the $100 bill, and that is a representation of that $100 bill is backed by gold. And the thing is, it's completely possible, man, because if these criminals have been ultimately vanquished and all of their assets have been confiscated, there is something like 24 trillion. We're talking about like 24 trillion sat in this bank account somewhere, and it was confiscated. And this, just using that 24 trillion they've confiscated in gold or something, that takes care of everything. There is enough gold. There is enough money. There is enough money and there is enough gold to go around. It's just been hoarded by these parasites. They've been hoarding it for a long time. What's that thing about dragons? Dragons sleep on a bed of, they have a gold hoard, don't they? That was the creature, the stories from mythology back when I was a teenager, was that dragons slept on a hoard of gold. And in the Terry Pratchett books, he talks about the dragons in the Terry Pratchett books sleep on hoards of gold. And that's why the Conan the Barbarians and that they go hunting dragon lairs, because of the gold hoards inside. So dragons, reptiles, monarchy, parasites, gold. There's enough gold, man, to gold back all the currencies. I believe that. I think that's a given. So I think it's just watch this space, isn't it? Stargate opening soon in Jerusalem. But what does that mean, Rev? What does that mean? There's a Stargate opening soon in Jerusalem, but what's a Stargate? Where does it go? Who is on the other side of the Stargate? Who's controlling it? How science fiction is this movie going to be in reality that's not manufactured CGI on our part? You know, how much of it? Because in all honesty, in my own experience, my own personal experience of life on this earth, I've had a couple of supernatural experiences that could still be, I could still explain away, or I could understand how somebody else would explain away as being a psychosis or something like that. But for me, it was absolutely real. My experience with the shadow man, with asking Jesus Christ for help speaking because I wasn't able to speak. That whole experience in 2016, and then in 2017, 3 chittering demons manifesting in my apartment. That was all, well, room, not apartment, room. They were real supernatural experiences, but they were recent. That, you know, that was 2016, 2017. Nothing's happened since. And I've seen craft in the sky. I've seen things in space, up in the sky. I've seen them in the daylight, and I've seen them at night. Lights, orbs, very fast, moving at impossible speeds. I've seen all of that, but I don't, like, how much of it. Chris, yo mate, how you doing? Yeah, see, Chris, you've heard about this as well. worldwide wealth to be shared for all. So basically what they're saying is that they've worked out so many generations of theft, and all of that is going to be paid to each one of us. They've worked out each one of us will get X amount of money each, and we can have it all paid out in a lump sum if we want, but the advice would be to have it paid out in monthly installments and therefore have an income for the rest of our lives. That's pretty cool, man. I mean, how do you, Reverend, how do you feel about that? Do you think that is do you think that they have done these things, and now they are in the process of changing the system, and we're going to reimburse everybody with the wealth that's been stolen over generations? Do you believe that? Does it feel like it could actually happen? My recent thoughts, pauses, journalists. We must be mindful. Lucifer is also the light bringer. The only light we can trust right now, in my honest opinion, is our own inner guidance. I do agree. I agree with you. I think the whole story about Lucifer and, you know, that whole narrative, man, is all part of the construction of a paradigm to control the way that we think about things, and I don't think that we can trust it because it's come in the last few hundred years, and in the last few hundred years we know they've been in control of everything, and they've been deceiving us, not for 10 years, not for 20 years, not for 50 years, not for 100 years. In my honest opinion, they've been deceiving us since what we see now was like the 12th, 13th century. 800 years at least they've been controlling the narrative and controlling the people and doing their best to bring about what's happening right now. I'd say if mankind had all the money, it might be 1,000 years of peace. That's another paradigm, dude. The 1,000 years of peace just plays into the biblical paradigm. John's revelations is John's revelations, isn't it? At the end, there's a very strong argument that it wasn't John that wrote those revelations. Apart from the whole argument that Francis Bacon had the last edit, the final edit of the King James Bible, the way that John wrote Revelations was completely different to how he wrote his gospel. And they explain that away by saying,
oh, but that was because it was actually God speaking through John.
Bollocks. I'm sorry. Bollocks. If God was speaking through John, he would have spoken as John. He wouldn't have spoken. He didn't stand there speaking like this through John. And John did not write it like this. Fuck off. It wasn't John that wrote it. was added afterwards. The guy that wrote it lived 400 years after Jesus, after the story of Jesus. So I feel it will happen, but it's just more palatable version of the NWO. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Right. Do you know what? The thing is, I think this is one thing that we're going to have to accept. That's the way it has to be. There has to be someone or something individually, on this earthly realm. there has to be a hierarchy. There's a natural hierarchy in nature, and there is a natural hierarchy amongst people. When you put a group together, there is a natural hierarchy. If you put a group of 100 people together, you close them off in an encampment for a year with no contact with the outside world whatsoever, right? There would be a natural hierarchy that would take place within that group that at the moment is based upon our programming, which is survival of the fittest. Basically, the strongest, scariest person is the boss. The biggest, scariest person is the boss. But the biggest, scariest entity. But in the new world, and what I think was the old world, was the people that were in charge were the people that were most respected, because they were the people that had achieved the most. And therefore the best equipped to any situation. So the elders, basically it was the elders who were in charge because they were the wisest. And not based dog eat dog capitalist scenario that we've been in. That this is why we've been talking with Darwin's theory of evolution and everything. It's it's a dog eat dog world, only the strongest survive. That's obviously going to change, man. That is obviously going to change. I've lost my train of thought, man. Why I was. Don't be cynical, brother. Open discussion. Who's been cynical? Me. I'm very cynical. I'm very difficult not to be. Let's see something else to prompt. Wisconsin senator bans all vote harvesting.
And one thing the deep state is panicking about, all the audits that are going on right now. Out in Wisconsin, the Senate, on a 21-12 vote, passes SB 203 banning all types of ballot harvesting. This is Fulton County. A Georgia recount worker with 20 years of experience described an odd badge that stood out. There was a different feel. Pristine sheets, difference in the texture of the paper with no markings, and approximately 98% for Joe Biden. Hundreds of these ballots seemed impeccable, no folds or creases, The bubble selections were perfectly made, only black ink, and all for Biden. All had perfect black bubble and were all Biden. I heard Biden over 500 times in a row. Our election system is so corrupt that it's taken Garland Favorito, an election integrity advocate, 6 months in court just to get the right to see these counterfeit ballots. Mr. Favorito has been fighting for election integrity for decades. Support him. Yes, and we're seeing this all over the place. The other thing that we're seeing is that a sample of 950 military ballots were recently audited in Georgia and all went to Joe Biden. That is completely impossible. That will not happen.
It's true. That's absolutely true. That would not happen. That is impossible. The odds of that are impossible.
At least one would go to Trump. So it seems that this impossibility was used in the election fraud, just like everything else. Now, in New Hampshire, we have the election investigation, which has revealed several local communities with bizarre date and timestamps. And this is what it says. We're in the final stretch of the audit of the Windham, New Hampshire election anomaly, which is scheduled to end this Thursday, May 27, 2 days from now. So far, this much we know. We do have a machine problem here in New Hampshire, as folds in the absentee ballots can cause our machines to erroneously record a vote.
So that audit that's done now. That was Thursday.
If the fold goes through the oval for a candidate. In hindsight, it was no coincidence that all four of the Republican candidates who were shorted votes were shorted almost the exact same amount, approximately 300 votes. What was a coincidence was the candidate who improperly gained votes, Christy St. Laurent, also gained a multiple of 100 when it was discovered.
No worries, Holistic Media. Much love, man.
That she had incorrectly received an extra 99 votes. What we have seen, though, is that many towns have bizarre date timestamps on their machine tapes. 2 towns, Londonderry and Amherst, set one of their machines to 0 and counted ballots on October 17th and October 23rd, respectively, 17 and 11 days before the election. Yes, an incorrectly set time clock could account for this. But why is this an issue in 2 of the 4 towns we have checked? Also, on several of the other Londonderry machines, they set the machine to 0 around 11 p.m., 4 hours after the polls closed, when all ballots should have already been entered into the machines. They ran final tally tapes 3 hours later. Were there observers from each party still in a room when this was done, many hours after the polls had closed? Now that's kind of strange. And when you look at the folds, and remember, it's not just the folds, there's many other things that are happening. The rate of error was a whopping 60%. And there was an explanation of the folds. It looks like they had a machine folding everything. So a machine was doing this, and it looks like they might have been filling in the dots, folding the ballots to make it look like it was real. Now, what's very interesting is that General Flynn, he put this out there and says the following. Breaking now, New Hampshire auditors find major problem. Scan counted only 28% of test ballots for GOP candidates. They crucified those that spoke of election irregularities, destroying lives and jobs. Now this. You see, it's all coming out. This is not just a glitch, an error. This was strategically planned, and it's starting to seem that the pattern is very similar in all different areas. And as they continue to do this, I think we're going to see a lot more of this. Now remember,
That's one thing, isn't it? Always a pattern will appear. There's always a pattern. That's why crimes like this are always discovered through the patterns that are created.
remember, they just didn't use one method. They used many, many methods. So if they use many, many methods to cheat, it's not a glitch. It's not an error. It's not a mistake, especially when it's done in multiple states. Now, Trump, he put this statement out. It says, New Hampshire's.
I mean, let's think about that for a second. That they're suggesting that there are multiple glitches multiple errors in multiple states for multiple reasons. What are the fucking odds of that? But it was the most secure election in history. Yeah, right, okay.
The election audit has revealed the large-scale voting machines appear to count non-existing votes. State and local communities are seeking confirmation.
All right, I'm done with that. Lionel Nation, let's have a listen to Lionel.
Fine. What is it? Is it ingress, egress? Then one across the street. That one's always popular, but not that one. Why is it? Why does this work? Why does that not work? What's going on here? What's the bottom line? When you look at news shows, you got to ask, this one wants to be sexy. This one is there to be sexy. This one, the number one, the beginning and the end, whatever it is the one who is sexy. And that's why I would hire nobody who is nobody under the age of maybe 40. Because I want to get that out of the way. Sorry, you're not. I want you to get that behind you. Maybe even higher. I would love to have a news program with people 50 years old and above. 50. Nothing but 50 and above. Get that out of the way. You want to be a model, you want to be hot, you want to be, I don't know, you want to go on to something else, you want to be an actor. Get away from that. Now,
he's got a bloody good point, man.
Well, look at the way restaurants work. What is it that's going to get your attention? Telling people what I want? Yeah, sort of, but not really. See what Fox News has done and other news.
I'll tell you what, let's see how he opened it, because this has been going for 40 minutes.
How long we're going to take today, because I'm just not.
Never trust anyone over 30.
Lionel Media today, because it's longer and it's I can be more focused in this, because this is a very slapdash sometimes. It's very, very distracting. But let me just give you a couple of things here.
Well, I don't know if you were here earlier when I mentioned it, though. I remember when, because I'm 44 next month, and I remember when my dad was 44, I remember it clearly because I was 17. I can remember exactly what was going on. Oh, I remember everything, man, when I was 17 and my dad was 44. Now I'm 44. I don't have any kids, certainly not that I know about. And it's weird. I know that there'll be a difference in the way that we, the way that I think compared to the way that a 44-year-old man with a 17-year-old child would think. There are going to be differences. But surely we'd still both have spent 44 years on the earth and have 44 years of life experience. It might be different experiences, but it's still 44 years of life experience and experience of other people. So I'm trying to work out how different I am to my dad when he was 44 and I was 17. I know what the major differences are, obviously. My dad was on, I don't know what house we were on, but by that time we'd had a number of different houses. They got bigger and bigger each time. And when I was 17, we were living in Church End, the old rectory, Church Road, Shaw, Newbury, Berkshire. RG14 2DR. Oh my God. I can still remember the whole fucking address. The whole address, RG14 2DR. That's quite funny. That I've never actually thought about it. But then thinking about it, I do remember the first phone number that I remember was when Hadley, and it was 700509. 07 01734 01734 700509. And I used to answer the phone. 01734 700509, Richard speaking. How can I help you? That's how I used to answer the phone for my parents. Hobbs, you're 56. Right. So, sorry, Hobbs, because I'm confused, really confused about which Hobbs I'm speaking to. Are we conversing? Are you the Hobbs that I talk to on Skype? Or is that Dean? Are you the musician that I speak to on Skype? Or is that Dean? Because if you're the musician I speak to on Skype, I had no idea that you are 56, mate. Jesus. I didn't realise you were 56. Nearly, that's like 8 years older than me. 9 years older than me. Yes. I didn't know you were 56, mate. Jesus. You don't look it. You certainly don't look 56. Reverend Holmes 20 looks in the mirror. Brian 51. Well, I'll tell you what, I do appreciate the fact that I've got these older gentlemen in my stream, listening to me yabbering away, giving my opinions about shit. I do actually, it does seem that men my generation, like David Nino Rodriguez. A lot of the truthers are sort of in their 40s and 50s. Most of the hardcore truthers are in our 40s and 50s, aren't we? I think. Vividness, Vivi's mess. Greetings from Denmark. I have been listening. I'm adopted. I was lucky not to grow up. To not grow up with my birth parents. You were lucky to not grow up with your birth parents. I wonder if someone ever taught your dad how to be a dad. By the way, I'm 48. So I would say that really my grandfather tried to teach my dad how to be a dad. And my granddad died when I was 6.5. But I remember he was my favorite man. I spent all my time with my granddad. He was my favorite man on earth. I knew my granddad. My granddad was my dad from the first. He was as good as my dad, basically, for the first 3 years of my life. And I didn't really know who my dad was, because my dad was away on business, working all the time. So my granddad was extremely important to me, my dad's dad. And you would imagine that, you know, I know that my dad had a very cushy life. He had a really cushy upbringing. He was made a Freemason. That had its benefits. He became very successful very young. That when he was 27 years old, the year that I was born, he was 27 years old. He was made managing director of a huge microelectronics company in America. This is in 1977 when the silicon chip was just like becoming big. The whole silicon chip thing, Silicon Valley, micro, processors and microchips. That's what my dad was doing when he was 27. He was managing director of one of the biggest manufacturers and distributors of microelectronics in the world. And then when I was 6.5 years old, my granddad stopped being a Freemason, died shortly afterwards in a freak accident where he sustained a head injury that meant that my dad had to have the machine switched off. My dad stopped being a Freemason. My gran was left out in the cold by the Freemasons, which is unheard of, man, in Freemasonry. And my dad's business and everything failed and all went to shit after that. But my granddad would have set a really bloody good example to my dad. My granddad had a business. It was an ironmonger's in Tadley. He owned the ironmonger's in Tadley. It was Avery's and Sons, not just Avery's in Tadley. It was like one of the favourite shops of all the locals. They could get anything there. Pet, tools, stuff for the garden, stuff for the kitchen. My granddad was a very practical man. My granddad and my dad were both engineers. My dad was an electrical engineer. My granddad was an engineer for the RAF in the Second World War. And he was building a business that he could hand down to his son, and his son could hand down to his son, who could hand down to his son. That's what my granddad was building. But when he realized that my dad was way too ambitious, and if he gave the business to my dad was not going to hand it down to me. My dad would probably just sell it to a corporation, sell it to B&Q and cash out on it. So he stipulated in his will that when he died, the business was to be sold. And the money was to be used to take care of my nan. And my dad then got my nan to invest all of that money in his business, which then failed. So, yeah, I can't remember why I went into that much detail. You're 37, Chris. Ah, you're a little pup, mate. You're a little pup. "1977 is a nuke puke." Don't know what that means, a nuke puke. "I met my birth parents when I was around 30. I realised how lucky I've been with my adopted parents. I would never have survived life with my real parents." I mean, the thing is, did they have you? Were you taken away from your real parents, or did they realise that they wouldn't be able to provide for you, and they gave you up? How did that happen? Did they give you up? Because you should be to them if that's what happened, grateful to them, but also you can't blame them, because they were only doing what they were programmed to do. And all of us have been programmed our entire lives. We've all been indoctrinated, and different programs take with different people. So some people get addicted to things. I mean, that's where it all lies, really, isn't it? It's getting addicted to things, and it's what you get addicted to. If you're getting addicted to substances, to drugs, to behavior, to shopping, to spending money, addicted to lying to people, addicted to sympathy, addicted to the hormones that are created when you're depressed. It's all. Apparently, the hormones that are created when you're in a conflict are so much easier to access and extremely addictive, like compared to the hormones that are released when you do something good and when good things happen. The hormones, they're different, but it's similar. It's like it's still a change of state, and it's that change of state that people get addicted to. I also realised that neither of my parents had a chance to learn how to be parents, because they both had poor excuses for parents as well. Best thing they ever did was give me a chance. That's brilliant, man. And the thing is, like, I know my dad had a brilliant upbringing, but my mum didn't. My mum had a really bad upbringing. My mum comes from a Jeremy Kyle family from the 50s. She was born in 1957. She was the fourth child. The third or the fourth child of 5 by 3 different men in the 40s and 50s. So my mum comes from an original council estate family. My nan had the first relationship was with an Englishman. Then she had an affair with an Indian man in the late 40s, early 50s. She had an affair with an Indian man and ran off with him and had a child with him. And then, while she was with him, she then ran off with an Algerian black man, my grandfather, who had been released from concentration camp, was a prisoner of war, well, not concentration camp. We didn't have concentration camps, did we? But he was released as a prisoner of war, being held by the British because he fought for the Germans. He was in the German aircraft, in the German Air Force. And she ran off with him and had 3 kids with him. And the only one of the 3 men that she married was the Indian man. So she took the name of Singroy. Original Jeremy Kyle, Jerry Springer material. Absolute original. And you know, the late 40s, early 50s, early to late 50s. Like my auntie Nikki is the youngest. And she was born like the late 50s. So yeah, my dad was given a good example to how to be a good man. But the trouble is, he got infatuated with my mum. And my mum wears the trousers, man. My mum wears the fucking trousers in our family. Raw. I was terrified of my mum, and I always said if my mum and dad split up, I'd want to go with my dad. Because my dad was a pushover in comparison to my mum. He wasn't interested. He was not interested. So as long as you didn't make too much noise, it didn't bother you. Whereas mum had a beak in everything. She wanted to know everything that was going on, and she wanted to control everything. But I'm really grateful for the fact that my parents are still together. Because you can say what you like about my parents. I can say what I like about my parents. They're still together and they love each other. And they've been a team. They've worked. All right, my dad is my mum's bitch. My dad is totally 100% my mum's bitch. But that's his choice. That's how he wanted it. I used to be like that. I used to be like that. Because that was the example that was set for me. I'm not like that now. I'm not going to be anybody's bitch now. I've been single for a few years. And I really appreciate my my ability to be me 100%. I don't have to pretend to Alfie.
Now, I know that I'm not supposed to say this because we always go into this rote, kind of an obeisant ceremony where we honor our military. It's nice, but it's the same thing all the time. We put pictures of them up. He will be missed. God bless. God bless. See you in the netherworld. Hero. He's a hero. And I'm not mocking the concept, but this is what we do. This is how we wash our hands of it. Say, yes, he will be missed. He gave his life.
That's good to see, Vividness. That's good to see. Married for 50 years. My parents have been married for 45 years. Yeah, they've been married for 45 years. I would have been married if I hadn't got divorced in 2012. I would have been married for 19 years this year on August 23rd. That would have been my 19th wedding anniversary had I not got divorced in 2012. about a month before the 10th anniversary, divorce came through. 37 years, Hobbs. That's awesome, man. 37 years. My sister has been with her husband for 19 years this year because she got married the same year that I did. She got married 6 months before me. February 16th, she got married. 2002, sorry. So now you see it in writing. It's like that with my age, dude. You know, when so I can say, oh, I'm 44 next month, and I think, well, I should feel older than I do, because I remember my dad when he was 44, and I remember that I was 17. So I've got very clear memories of all of that, what was going on, everything that was going on, what I was doing, what he was doing, what my mum was doing, everything. I remember all of it, clear as day, like it was yesterday. Oh man, I've just my train of thought's just gone completely off the rail, totally crashed into a fucking wall. Oh yeah, I should probably end the stream, but I'm not gonna, because I'm sat here on my own every day going crazy, and so I'm just gonna sit here with you guys and do exactly the same thing. Just, I'm gonna do it live, but only audio. That's even better, dude. You never got married. That's a true. The only reason that me and my ex-wife stayed together for 6 years, we were together for 6 years. We were married for 10 years, 9, 10 years. So we were separated for 4 years and estranged by the time we got divorced. That's why the divorce was so easy. But the only reason we stayed together for 6 years was because we were married, because I felt I had an obligation to try to make that marriage work, despite the fact that it turned out that my wife at the time had severe personality disorders and was a danger to herself and society. And I hope that she's good now. I hope that she's turned her life around in that respect, and she's been able to reach out and actually get some help, because I wasn't able to help her. And it really did break my heart when we split up, not because we'd split up. Well, no, it was because we'd split up, but it was more because it was like I'd spent 5 years knowing that I couldn't help her, but I couldn't end it because I was terrified of what would happen if I did. And it all ended up perfect, you know. In the end, after 6 years, God gave me an out, and I found her in bed with our housemate. So, you know, that gave me a reason, justification to leave her and to end it. And the only reason that happened was because she was ready to end it, and that was the only way that she could end it. She couldn't say to me, so she had to do it like that. That's fair enough, man. It hurt like hell at the time, because I'd spent 6 years of her accusing me and going through my phone and being totally paranoid about my faithfulness, and I was absolutely, totally 100% faithful to her, completely 100% monogamous. And it was her that cheated on me. So, you know, that was a bit of a kick in the teeth. But there we go. That's life. That's just fucking life. 59 years married. Jesus, Jim. That's awesome. 60 years, isn't that so have you had your golden wedding anniversary yet? It's 50. What's 50 years? Is 25 years silver and 50 years is gold? Is it like the Jubilee? Like the Queen's Jubilee? As far as the precious metals and the stones that are assigned to whatever year it is. Mystery about Obama's parent. Extra Restored Republic via a GCR update.
When in the history of this country, when in modern history, have we ever had a moment, an opportunity like this to once and for all go in there, harvest the corn, get it out of society, you know, make a road bed with it, all the way to Gitmo, and get these people out of control over our lives. This is the one shot. If we don't succeed now, Jennifer, it might not happen for another 100 years. Is there another Trump on the horizon? I have great admiration for President Trump and his family. They have stepped up and stepped into this fight. They're all in. They can't possibly back down. If they did, they'd be wiped out in a day, in very short order. So at this point in time, the only alternative for him, he's all in, is to fight this through to the end. And the only question is,
it's nice when somebody knows you. Do you feel that, Hobbs? Do you think it's nice when somebody knows you? I like it when people know me and they understand me. I like that. I like people to get me and to know how I'll be. It shouldn't be like that. The Warriors shouldn't be like that, should they? I should be unpredictable. But no, I like to be understood. Understood.
The whole quarantine goes back to these intelligence agencies, the CIA and the FBI. The farm is the location where agents are trained to do direct undercover, to do espionage. These farm products that come from the farm are, teasingly we call them the corn. Well, what's the relevance? This corn, these corn balls, if you will, are the people that have been being put in power over us.
Just in case you're wondering, I've seen that I can actually share screen share. So this is, but I can't seem to screen share. Well, because I'm logged in under Firefox, and if I go into YouTube, I'm gonna have to put all my password and everything in, and I can't bloody remember.
Foisted upon us to control us as a society. Barack Obama is a total fabrication to create his history and make him lovable, make him believable. And they're doing it. And this has been